Welcome back, Dissectors, to another haunting episode. Many of you have seen the 2005 movie titled The Exorcism of Emily Rose, a film that left plenty of people around the world horrified. It highlighted the dangers of exorcisms and how far people are willing to go for what they believe to be true. But did you know the story was based on a real person, that of a young German lady called Anneliese Michel? Anneliese was brought up in a very devout Catholic household in Bavaria, West Germany, and would attend Mass twice a week. Everything seemed normal for the family until one day life took a very dark, sinister turn. When Anneliese was just 16 years old, she blacked out at school and was described as walking around in a trance-like state by those who witnessed her behaviour. The thing is, the young girl could remember nothing about what happened. Then, about a year later, she woke up in a similar state again, but this time she'd also wet the bed. Here her body is said to have shaken uncontrollably, with those in her household believing it was a sign that she was possessed by a demon. Now, wanting to cover all bases, Anneliese visited a neurologist to see if they could find anything wrong, and she was diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy. This condition can cause seizures, loss of memory, extensive writing and drawing, alterations in sexual behaviour, hallucinations, and intense religious beliefs. So, on with the diagnosis, Anneliese was put on medication for epilepsy and then decided to enrol in the University of Würzburg in 1973. Sadly, even though she was taking her meds as prescribed, she began to feel worse in herself and believed again she was possessed by a demon and not epileptic. Now fear gripped the young woman and she sought other means of help, especially when she started to see the face of the devil wherever she went and even heard voices whispering to her. The final straw came when she was praying one day and heard demons goading her, stating she was damned and would rot in hell. You can imagine how terrified Anneliese and her family were, especially with how religious they lived their lives. They decided to seek help from the church for the supposed demonic possession, but every clergy member they spoke to rejected the claims, stating that what she needed was medical help and that they would also have needed permission from a bishop. Shocked at their rejection, it seems Anneliese totally lost her shit. Due to believing that possession was the problem and ultimately going to send her soul to hell, she began acting strangely. She took all her clothes off, ate spiders and coal, tore the head off a dead bird with her teeth, and even licked her own urine from the floor. But that was just the start. She also started doing 400 squats per day and at one point crawled beneath a table and barked like a dog for 2 days. Was all this done by Anneliese as a cry for help, meant to shock people into believing she was possessed? Or was she really suffering at the hands of a demonic entity? Finally, the family found someone who would listen to their cries, and that priest was called Ernst Alt. It seems that in her desperation, Anneliese had written to the man stating, "I am nothing. Everything about me is vanity. What should I do? I have to improve. Will you pray for me?" As well as, "I want to suffer for other people, but this is so cruel." Now, her first statement does seem to be about her wanting to get well again and feeling unsure how to achieve it. But the second statement of wanting to suffer for other people almost comes across like she's painting herself like Jesus, who is said to have died for others. This statement also makes no sense if she was possessed, as surely she would have to have let the demon inside her willingly to suffer for others. Anyway, Alt reached out to the local bishop, Joseph Stangl, who after much hesitation approved the request for an exorcism. The bishop also requested that a local priest named Arnold Renz assist and that the exorcism be carried out in total secrecy. Exorcisms are a dark subject for the church and one that in recent years they've tried to steer clear of, especially with the advancement of modern medicine. But long ago, during the 1500s, the practice was quite popular with the Catholic Church, and the Latin term vade retro satana, meaning go back Satan, was used to rid the demon thought to be holding the person hostage. Now, we've covered many asylums on this channel about how often people would be locked up on grounds of possession when in fact they were suffering from epilepsy. One such episode was a recent one on Athens Lunatic Asylum. By the 1960s, exorcisms were rarely performed, but when horror movies and books on the practice started to gain traction, like The Exorcist in 1973, well, the public took more of an interest. During the next 10 months after the approval from the bishop, Alt and Renz performed 67 exorcisms on Anneliese. You heard correct, 67 exorcisms, and each one lasting up to 4 hours. She was restrained during these two for the safety of those around her. It was brought to light during these that the young woman thought she was being possessed by 6 demons: Lucifer, Cain, Judas Iscariot, Adolf Hitler, Nero, and a disgraced priest by the name Fleischmann. Anneliese believed they were fighting amongst themselves to gain control of her body, each taking it in turn to use her to communicate. In recordings, the voice of Hitler is heard saying, "People are stupid as pigs. They think it's all over after death. It goes on." While Judas goads Hitler, saying he's nothing but a big mouth with no real say in hell. Here I see another problem, and please bear in mind, this is just my opinion. You have 6 demons stating they want control of her body, but one of these is thought to be Lucifer, who is all-powerful in the evil department. If this was true, surely Lucifer would just tell the others to take a hike and that he wanted control of the woman. Would a being so powerful really argue with the likes of Hitler, for example? At this point, Anneliese would frequently talk about, as she put it, dying to atone for the wayward youth of the day and the apostate priests of the modern church, which to me sounds less about possession and more like she is a sacrifice of some sort. Whatever the case, her mind was twisting her up inside, and she prayed so much that the bones in her knees were broken and the tendons ripped. Worse still, she stopped eating and drinking like she'd given up on life during the abuse of the exorcisms. Finally, on July 1st, 1976, Anneliese died of malnutrition and dehydration aged 23 years old. Well, you can imagine the media in Germany when they found out about this, especially when the 2 priests and her parents were charged with negligent homicide. To fight their cause, the accused produced recordings from the exorcism to try and justify the abuse inflicted. Eventually, the priests were found guilty of manslaughter by negligence, but would you believe they were only sentenced to 6 months? And even that was later suspended, followed by 3 years probation. As for her parents, well, the court figured that they'd suffered enough and so went free. Can I just say how truly disturbing this sentencing is? They tortured the girl to death and got away with it. Surely there must have come a point where they thought, this isn't working, maybe we should seek medical help for her, or at least guidance from the church. Today, Anneliese is an icon to many Catholics who feel that the Bible has strayed too far from its original teachings, including their take on the paranormal. They feel that she was possessed by an evil entity or 6, and many travel to visit her grave, leaving messages for help and even thanks for her sacrifice. I can understand that she might well be an inspiration to many for her strength of faith. Many say that the proof is in the fact that the medication was not working, and others who suffer the same condition claim they've never experienced what she went through, only adding to their convictions of it being a real possession. My thoughts? This was during the 1970s and medication was nowhere near as good as it is today. The family didn't seem to follow up with the medical route after the meds were not working, something even the church told them to do. Part of her symptoms were becoming intensely religious, which, when you're surrounded by a religious family, could have been a serious drawback, as they'd be more willing to believe something like possession, something they could see and believe in, than a medical condition. It really is a very sad tale, and one that if treated properly may have had a completely different outcome. Hopefully Anneliese has found the peace in death she certainly never found in life. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I know some of you may have found it quite disturbing to hear, especially as I'm sure I butchered many pronunciations, for which I apologise. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and until next time, dissectors, stay safe out there.